Welcome to Dose with Grace. I hope you're doing well and taking very good care of your health. Today, we are going to do chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita. We are almost reaching towards the concluding part of the learnings of Bhagavad Gita, and it is such a good feeling that we have had a very fulfilling journey together. And if you have started watching this video from here, from this particular video, I would highly recommend for you to go behind and search for the videos starting from the chapter 1, and even before that, who and why should we read Bhagavad Gita is the perfect way to start these videos. And then go to chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and that's how build your appetite, build your curiosity, learn things, and understand this knowledge which is highly transcendental. It is called the nectar of all the Vedas and all the Upanishads and scriptures because it is told in a very simple conversational format by Krishna, by God Himself, to Arjuna, who in fact became a mouthpiece of a lot of us in this world who have problems, who have a lot of confusions, and through these questions and answers, all this knowledge has been rendered upon us. So reading Bhagavad Gita, listening to Bhagavad Gita, discussing Bhagavad Gita is the perfect way to understand whatever you're doing. Is it in the right way or the wrong way? Is it according to Shastras or not? And that is why you will be able to know, is it creating more bondage in my life or is it creating more freedom and liberation? So the 16th chapter today that we are doing is called Dev-Asur Sampaddi Vibhag Yoga, or the divine and demonic natures. So as the tradition is, let's get into this chapter by first calling upon the grace of God through these very powerful, blissful, and energizing Mahamantras. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you for joining back. Today we are going to start with the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is called Devasur Sampaddi Vibhag Yoga. So it's Dev and Asur. These are the two different natures that exist in this world. Understanding what they are and understanding how they are divided from each other, their qualities, their manifestation into our lives, that and we can know through this learning what is our nature, where are we more prone to, what is the nature of people around surrounding us, and what does these nature, what is the path ahead for these two different distinct natures that exist in this world, we being part of it. So please understand that this chapter is not just an academic exercise. This is not just an intellectual or logical exercise. Try to understand the meaning behind what has been told, to fully understand it, to fully apply it in your life. Because the whole purpose of reading Bhagavad Gita, to share Bhagavad Gita, is to basically live Bhagavad Gita. It's a very practical tool to live life. It's the way we all can live life, and it can only happen when we not just take it as an academic exercise but fully understand it. So therefore I would request you all to enjoy this learning in a very relaxed and a peaceful manner, opening your hearts and opening your minds to the learnings that are imbibed in this nectar of all the knowledge that is there in the scriptures. Because it is said that it is the nectar of all the knowledge. Why? Because it is told directly by God Himself. The other Vedas and Upanishads, they have been also told directly by God to these, or created in the minds of these rishis. However, when they have been written and interpreted, a lot has there, and it's also a lot to study. So if you don't have time to maybe read all the four Vedas, all the 18 Puranas, and all the Upanishads and the the Sahityas, it's better you just fully understand these 700 shlokas of Gita by not just listening it from the eye of a person who's trying to understand it as a subject. But if you're there right now, maybe you can do it that way. But if you have progressed a bit, that you want to contemplate upon it and try to understand what this means to me, how I can apply it in my life, then it is a true value we bring out of this nectar of learning. And that is how we can elevate our sufferings, the daily sufferings of our life, the anxieties, the pressures that we are surrounding ourselves with, and these mental turmoils that we go through, the physical turmoils that we may be going through, the attachments, and the lust, greed, and anger that we are engulfed with. All of this is the way to literally find a mukti marg out of it. It is very, very true. It has helped me. It does help me on everyday life. As I'm going to read this chapter, there is new learning that comes to me, so you can understand that it's absolute truth, which means it doesn't change over a period of time. It is a truth that applies to everybody, and hence it is recommended to everybody, not just to Hindus or to people who are followers of Hinduism, but to anybody. No matter what your religion is, continue practicing your religion, but you can always read it to understand the truth of life and live a beautiful and a very fulfilling life. With that, let's start the chapter 16th. उसके उपरांत श्री कृष्ण भगवान फिर बोले, हे अर्जुन, दैवी संपदा जिन पुरुषों को प्राप्त है तथा जिनको असुरी संपदा प्राप्त है, उनके लक्षण पृथक पृथक कहता हूँ। उनमें से सर्वदा भय का अभाव, अंतकरण की अच्छी प्रकार से स्वच्छता, तत्व ज्ञान के लिए ध्यान योग में निरंतर दृढ़ स्थिति और सात्विक दान तथा इंद्रियों का दमन, भगवत पूजा और होत्रादि उत्तम कर्मों का आचरण एवं वेद शास्त्रों के पठन पाठन पूर्वक भगवान के नाम और गुणों का कीर्तन तथा सर्वधर्म पालन के लिए कष्ट सहन करना एवं शरीर और इंद्रियों के सहित अंतकरण की सरलता. In this first shloka, Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that first of all, Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that I am going to tell you now who has sampada is a word that is related to property, your wealth, your property, your assets. But here sampada, Devi sampada, means the wealth of having that particular nature, having that qualities, having those qualities of that particular type, having those traits, having those value system, having those traits which can be displayed outwardly, but also having those subtle qualities that are leading to those traits of the outside. That is here called the property, the sampada, Devi sampada, the divine nature, and asuri sampada means the demonic nature. So what are the qualities, what are the what are the features, what are the significations. Lakshan means what are the indicators of these two different types of wealth or the natures. I will tell you separately. That's what Krishna tells Arjun. So he says, first, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from passion, for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to only godly men endowed with divine nature. So here are so many qualities that Sri Krishna has clearly mentioned. These are the qualities of those who are endowed with divine nature. तथा मन, वाणी और शरीर से किसी प्रकार भी किसी को कष्ट न देना तथा यथार्थ और प्रिय भाषण, अपना अपकार करने वाले पर भी क्रोध का ना होना, कर्मों में कर्तापन का अभिमान का त्याग एवं अंतकरण की उपरामता अर्थात चित्त की चंचलता का अभाव और किसी की भी निंदादि ना करना तथा सब भूत प्राणियों में हेतु रहित दया, इंद्रियों का विषयों के साथ संयोग होने पर भी आसक्ति का ना होना और कोमलता तथा लोक और शास्त्र से विरुद्ध आचरण में लज्जा और व्यर्थ चेष्टाओं का अभाव. As Sri Krishna is continuing with describing the qualities, so he's first describing the qualities of divine nature. So here Sri Krishna is continuing with the explanation of the divine qualities. So he says that तथा तेज, क्षमा, धैर्य और बाहर भीतर की शुद्धि एवं किसी भी शत्रु भाव का ना होना और अपने में पूज्यता के अभिमान का अभाव, ये सब तो हे अर्जुन दैवी संप्रदा को प्राप्त हुए पुरुष के लक्षण हैं. So in these there are about 26 qualifications that Shri Krishna has mentioned. So I will repeat once again all of these qualities. There are 26 qualities that Shri Krishna mentions to Arjuna to explain the qualities of Devi Samprada, of the divine nature. And if someone is bestowed with that nature, it maybe these qualities will not be so visible, but they can be cultivated over a period of time, and they can be growing as the person is progressing in life. We can see that these if you have these qualities in very small amount, but as your life progresses, you learn more and more about it, and you practice more and more of these qualities, they will grow in you. So you can nurture also these qualities in you. So knowing that what are the divine qualities, it is very important. So let me repeat once again the shloka 1, 2 and 3 of the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Fearlessness, purifications of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas or study of your own scriptures, austerity, simplicity, non violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities belong to godly men who are endowed with divine nature. So, cultivating all these 26 qualifications that are mentioned are transcendental qualities. These are the qualities that liberate us. They free us from the bondage. You will realize each one of these qualities as we are hearing them, we realize that they don't bind us. They rather open us. The more we practice these qualities, the more we nurture these qualities within us, we will see our heart is very, very open. It's like it's not bound by relationships. It's not so bound by duty. It is rather free to do our best in relationships. It's rather making us free to do our best in our duties. They should be cultivated according to the different status of social and occupational order. The learning here is that even though material conditions may not suit these qualities, if these qualities are developed by practice by us, then gradually it is possible to rise to the higher platform of transcendental realization. So every time we have this opportunity where we can practice these qualities, where we can practice forgiveness instead of taking a revenge, where we can practice non-fault finding instead of sitting and criticizing someone, we are in every moment trying to progress little bit towards our more divine nature. We are moving towards divine nature. So this is also a benchmark for us to understand that where are we progressing. हे पार्थ, पाखंड, घमंड और अभिमान तथा क्रोध और कठोर वाणी एवं अज्ञान भी यह सब आसुरी संपदा को प्राप्त हुए पुरुष के लक्षण हैं. So now once Krishna has explained about the divine qualities, now he is explaining about the demonic qualities. What are those? Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness of speech, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demonic nature, O son of Partha. So here Krishna is telling the contrasting qualities and how to which category they belong. उन दोनों प्रकार की संपदाओं में दैवी संपदा तो मुक्ति के लिए है और असुरी संपदा बांधने के लिए मानी गई है. इसलिए हे अर्जुन, तू शोक मत कर, क्योंकि तू दैवी संपदा को प्राप्त हुआ है. The fifth shloka of the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita explains that the transcendental qualities, the subtle, the beautiful, elevating qualities that are more conducive to liberation, because you have to be a little more lighter to move above the ordinary, to move above this entanglement of too many desires and too many things that are binding to us. So Shri Krishna says that these transcendental, which with the divine qualities, which the 26 qualifications that were mentioned in the first 3 shlokas, are conducive. They are the ones which provide more environment for liberation. Whereas the demonic qualities, the more of the qualities that were told in the 4th shloka, are qualities that are meant for bondage. They are meant for bondage. They're more of shrinking qualities. Do not worry. He tells Arjun, don't worry, Arjun. You're born with the divine qualities. So when we are born only, there are certain qualities, there are certain sanskar that we are born with. Are we born with these sanskars or that sanskars? So because of the nature of the karmas that we have done in the previous lives. हे अर्जुन, इस लोक में भूतों के स्वभाव दो प्रकार के माने गए हैं। एक तो देवों जैसा और दूसरा असुरों के जैसा। उनमें देवों का स्वभाव ही विस्तार पूर्वक कहा गया है, इसलिए अब असुरों के स्वभाव को भी विस्तार पूर्वक मेरे से सुन। So here Krishna tells Arjun, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called the divine and the other one is called demonic. So he says that in the previous chapters, also before, as you will read Bhagavad Gita from chapter 1 to 16, he says that I have explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now please hear from me what are the demonic qualities. So you have a full knowledge and you have full understanding. हे अर्जुन, असुरी स्वभाव वाले मनुष्य कर्तव्य कार्य में प्रवृत्त होने को और अकर्तव्य कार्य से निवृत्त होने को भी नहीं जानते हैं। इसीलिए उनमें ना तो बाहर भीतर की शुद्धि है, ना श्रेष्ठ आचरण, ना ही सत्य भाषण ही है। So here Sri Krishna is telling Arjun, those who are demonic do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. What is their duty and what is not their duty. So they will probably do things which is not their duty and maybe doing certain things which are definitely not according to their dharma or their duty. Neither cleanliness or a proper behavior or nor truth is found in them. So here cleanliness is not just referred to taking bath, or maybe that is the outward expression. Maybe they're also not very clean to look at. But here the cleanliness is talked about bahar bhitar ki shuddhi, the inside cleansing and the outer cleansing. So outer cleansing happens through taking bath, cleaning your teeth and grooming your hair, but the inner cleansing happens through knowing what is my duty and then performing our duties according to our shastras, according to our laid out shastras, the teachings of according to our dharma, as a daughter, as a wife, as a mother, what my duties are. If I don't perform them, that means there is something that is preventing me from doing those duties, and that cleanliness has to come from within my heart. Then I'm able to happily perform everything that I'm meant to. वे असुरी प्रवृत्ति वाले मनुष्य कहते हैं कि जगत आश्रय रहित और सर्वथा झूठा एवं बिना ईश्वर के अपने आप स्त्री पुरुष के संयोग से उत्पन्न हुआ है, इसलिए केवल भोगों को भोगने के लिए ही है, इसके सिवा और है ही क्या। So here Shri Krishna is explaining what is the mindset of a demonic nature, a person who possesses or who's endowed with the demonic nature, how they think and how they relate to things. They say that the world is unreal, with no foundations, there's no God in control, it's not being controlled by God, it's not being created by God. They say it is produced out of just the desire of a man and a woman coming together, and that has caused creation, that has brought life into the world, and it has no other cause than lust. This is how the thought process of a person who is endowed with the demonic nature is. इस प्रकार इस मिथ्या ज्ञान को अवलंबन करके नष्ट हो गया है स्वभाव जिसका, तथा मंद है बुद्धि जिसकी, ऐसे वे सबका अपकार करने वाले क्रूर कर्मी मनुष्य केवल जगत का नाश करने के लिए ही उत्पन्न होते हैं. Now following such kind of conclusions or having this kind of a mindset, when someone is thinking that there is everything is for lust, everything is for us to enjoy and have more, and the creation is just just as a result of men and women coming together to make more babies, and that is how more and more world is there. And there is no proof of the existence of God. There is no God. And this is how they believe that this world is. Then with this conclusion in their mind, this kind of people with this kind of nature, they who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence. Here I'm not talking about bookish intelligence. They may have many degrees, they may have a very good place in the society in terms of making money and in terms of status, that outward status, where people think that they are at a very good position, but they may not have this understanding of who we are, where we come from, and where are we going, and what is the nature, what is the existence, how we are twined with nature, that we are all one in all and one all in one. They don't have that in a way, that adhyatmic gyan, that understanding of what life is truly about. They engage in unbeneficial, horrible works which are meant to destroy the world. Now, what is unbeneficial and horrible? Here, it may not seemingly look unbeneficial and horrible, but if they are propagating something which ultimately leads to destruction and more bondage and more lust and greed, they are in a way trying to destroy the life around them. वे मनुष्य दंभ, मान और मद से युक्त हुए किसी प्रकार भी न पूर्ण होने वाली कामनाओं का आसरा लेकर तथा अज्ञान से मिथ्या सिद्धांतों को ग्रहण करके भ्रष्ट आचरणों से युक्त हुए संसार में बरतते हैं. Now these we can see around us also. There are many people who have so much pride in themselves, so much anger, and they literally think a lot of they have so many desires, like even if they have a lot, but they still have so many insatiable desires. So here Shri Krishna is saying taking shelter of in these insatiable lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and the false prestige. What is pride and false prestige? Now, if someone is having a huge rank in society, having a huge bungalow, having servants, and is at a very great position in government or in, say, private sector, we will think, how is it a conceit? It is not conceit. It's not a false prestige. But the falseness here is not in the material world, but falseness here is in the transcendental world, in the adhyatmic, in the world of God, in the world which is where all these things don't really work, where even time and money doesn't work. There is no relevance, because we saw that different kalas are there. We are just living for a very short while, and then we progress to death, and then to another life, and we progress to death, and that's how one yuga is completed. So obviously all these things are going to end with the time that we end. Nobody is going to take with their grave their position and their status and their money. So that is why it is called the false prestige. The demonic, thus illusioned, are always sworn to unclean work, attracted by the impermanent. What is this? What is impermanent? All of this is impermanent. The name and the fame and the prestige that we have, why is it labeled as false, even though it is very much visible and very much there on papers with you? But why is it false? Because it's impermanent. There is a time limit to it, and anything that has a time limit to it is worthy of just doing because of the fact that we have to do karma. But getting too severely attached to it, and rather getting illusion that this is what, being so smitten with it and going to any length to increase that in life, is what is called as illusionment. And it is these people, this nature is mostly attracted to that impermanent. वे मरण पर्यंत रहने वाली अनंत चिंताओं को आश्रय किए हुए और विषय भोगों के भोगने में तत्पर हुए एवं इतना मात्र ही आनंद है ऐसे मानने वाले हैं. Now, they believe that to gratify their senses is the prime necessity of living. They think that gratifying what I want, fulfilling my desires, fulfilling every desire, and the desire is never ending. Once that desire is fulfilled, as soon as a desire is fulfilled, another desire is born, which is bigger and probably much more, uh, uh, even much more craving, much bigger craving is born. To satiate that, we work, and then another desire is born. There is never a there's never a satiation of our desires. So here Shri Krishna is saying they believe that just to gratify the senses one after the other, fulfilling my desires, fulfilling my needs, which I first label them as needs, then I've labeled them as my requirements, then I label them as my luxuries, then I label them as my ultra luxuries or my need. Uh, uh, Gratifying these is the only purpose of living. Thus, until the end of their life, their anxiety is immeasurable. So, as they keep, it is not necessary that for those only who do not receive what they wish. Those who don't receive what they wish, they may still be shoved towards this path of understanding that all of this is ultimately going to lead us to disappointments. Because not every desire will, there is nobody whose every single desire can be fulfilled. So until one desire is being fulfilled, another is fulfilled, third one is fulfilled, it is basically running you towards a marathon of one desire after the other. So one day that marathon has to crash. One day some desire will not be fulfilled, and if it is reached to the point where the highest desire is not fulfilled, imagine the crash that you feel. And then if you wake up to the fact that okay, this desire was anyway, I was running a marathon, it's a rat race I was after. There, what I need is already being there. What I need for my fulfillment is already there. It's unnecessary desires that I'm unnecessarily caught myself with, and that is giving me anxiety that is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger. Desire creates lust, and lust, if fulfilled, creates more lust, and a web of lust and web of desires. But soon after, when one of them will not be fulfilled, there comes anger, there comes dissatisfaction. They secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. इसीलिए आशा रूप सैकड़ों फांसियों में बंधे हुए और काम क्रोध के परायण हुए विषय भोगों की मूर्ति पूर्ति के लिए अन्यायपूर्वक धन आदि बहुत से पदार्थों को संग्रह करने की चेष्टा करते हैं. Just because the desires are so many and then they can be only met with not the limited money, they will think of ways to make money in some illegal ways or अन्यायपूर्वक illegal ways or hoarding things just to feel full because of the emptiness which is there within. उन पुरुषों के विचार इस प्रकार के होते हैं कि मैंने आज यह तो पाया है और इस मनोरथ को प्राप्त होऊंगा तथा मेरे पास इतना धन है और फिर भी ये होएगा. वह शत्रु मेरे द्वारा मारा गया और दूसरे शत्रुओं को भी मैं मारूंगा तथा मैं ईश्वर और ऐश्वर्य को भोगने वाला हूँ और मैं सब सिद्धियों से युक्त एवं बलवान और सुखी हूँ. मैं बड़ा धनवान और बड़े कुटुंब वाला हूँ. मेरे समान दूसरा कौन है. मैं यज्ञ करूँगा, दान करूँगा, हर्ष को प्राप्त होऊंगा. इस प्रकार के अज्ञान से मोहित है. Now here Shri Krishna, here I've taken three shlokas together because they are in continuation. So look at this, what is the mindset of this kind of a nature. So we don't have to say that this is demonic nature. It's a mindset, it's the way a person is structuring their thought process. It is the way they think. Now how do they think? And if you think this way, that means you possess a demonic nature. What is the way they think? Today I have got this, tomorrow and I will achieve something great out of it, then today I have so much wealth and then this will happen. So they are building castles in the mind. Today I have this, tomorrow I will have this. Today I have this much money, tomorrow I will have this much. They're planning more and more and more acquisition. Today I have defeated this person, today I have won over this person, tomorrow you see I will defeat other people also. I am like enjoyer of everything in my life, and I am the one who is able to I am full of all the wealth, and I'm so powerful, and I'm so happy. Look how great I am. I am so rich, and I have such a big family, such an amazing family. Who is like me? There is no one like me. I will do yagyas, I will go and donate somewhere, and then I will feel more and more happy. And this is the way they think. I am the doer. I keeps growing and growing and growing. So much wealth. So again, I will explain these three shloka. They feel. So if you have this nature, please understand these are the qualities that you will exhibit. You will be feeling, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes, my plans. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I've killed him. In this case, not really killed him, but you can think that he's somebody who was my contemporary. I've defeated him, I've overpowered him, or I have insulted him, or I have put him down. And my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. Sometimes we are so proud of even our family lineage, of our people around us. I am so this, I am so that. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. So since I am so rich, I am so capable, I can even perform everything. I shall perform some yagyas, I'll give something to charity, and thus I will rejoice. I will also like sort of buy in a business, how it's a business deal, I will do this karma, and I will reap more better karmas. In this way, such people are deluded by ignorance. So Krishna is not saying they are good, that they are doing charity and all. He's saying they are deluded by ignorance. इसीलिए वे अनेक प्रकार से भ्रमित हुए चित्त वाले अज्ञानी जन मोह रूप जाल में फंसे हुए एवं विषय भोगों में अत्यंत आसक्त हुए महान अपवित्र नरक में गिरते हैं. So here Shri Krishna says, thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions. All these are illusions. And we think that these are the realities of our life. If you really look at it, Krishna has just mentioned all of these things. And if you have taken pride in all these things, understand that these are all illusions. Thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, they become so strongly attached to this sense enjoyment and fall down into hell. Now, hell is not a place where you actually eventually go. Hell is the living form of our mindset, of our own body. Such people generally will have a lot of diseases. If you are constantly in such bewilderment of illusions and you have so many anxieties, you are planning one thing after the other, you will see it is reflecting in your mindset. You have a very negative, you have a very fearful mindset, and you have so much pride that you're always angered by little things around you, and you feel entitled to so many things, and you may feel a sense of upmanship around people around you. I'm so good, I'm so this, I'm so that, and it also leads to then physical ailments. वे अपने आप को श्रेष्ठ मानने वाले घमंडी पुरुष धन और मान के मद से युक्त हुए, शास्त्र विधि से रहित, केवल नाम मात्र के यज्ञों द्वारा पाखंड से यजन करते हैं. Now, such people who are self-complacent, considering themselves to be the best, and always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige, they sometimes proudly perform sacrifices or do some pujas or big yagyas in the name only without actually following any rules and regulations. So, here, rules and regulations don't just mean getting the right kind of instruments, getting the right kind of panditji, and doing the things that are like object wise. But here, rules and regulations means having that first, that purity of heart, doing the prayer for the God, to please the God, not just to get some returns. Because that is, we'll see in the chapter 17. Again, we will be understanding in three modes of nature how we do different things. For example, even prayers can be sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic, depending on with what intention, with what mindset, with what energy that you perform your prayers. And similarly, a lot of other things we'll explain in chapter 17. However, in chapter 16, here we are explaining the people who are endowed with demonic nature. What are their indications? How are they expressing themselves in the world? They are self-complacent and always impudent, always believing they are best, deluded by their wealth. And probably this also means that probably a lot of wealthy people can be included in this, because again and again Shri Krishna is saying, deluded by their wealth and false prestige, they're probably at very high positions. But if they are wealthy and at high positions but do not believe in all these things, they're rather using their position and their wealth in doing good karmas, in helping people, in rather even elevating themselves by indulging in the acts which are very self-sacrificing, very loving, very God-loving, very divine kind of acts. They are more very beautiful energy to be around. They build people and communities. Then your wealth and your prestige is rather elevating you towards liberation and not binding you towards this demonic nature of false ego and prestige and throwing your weight around, feeling entitled, putting others down. They don't sacrifice. Like for example, people with demonic nature, they do sacrifices and the prayers only for the name, without following rules and regulations. Whereas those who have wealth, have prestige, may also be doing a lot of sacrifices with a lot of devotion and a lot of love for God, a lot of creating, being grateful for what they have. So it is not that only when you have a lot of wealth and prestige you can become demonic. You can stay in the divine nature too, but their qualities will be very different. Here Shri Krishna is explaining more of the demonic nature, who are having a lot of wealth and prestige. So mostly we mistake and understand that in society, if someone is rising and rising and rising, we think no matter what they are doing must be good, because see, they are rising. Not necessarily. We have to look at their characteristics, we have to look at their nature, we have to look at where their where their actions are progressed, what are their intentions, and that will tell us whether they are having divine nature or they are having demonic nature, regardless of their prestige and wealth. वे अहंकार, बल, घमंड, कामना और क्रोध आदि के परायण हुए एवं दूसरों की निंदा करने वाले पुरुष अपने और दूसरों के शरीर में स्थित मुझ अंतर्यामी से द्वेष करने वाले हैं. This is one big indication that we can feel with people around us, and we can understand what kind of nature they are. Even for ourselves, it's a good check to understand. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demonic nature people become envious of even God, who is situated in their own body and in the bodies of all the others, and they literally also have a sense of, dislike towards the real religion. So they may even not like religion because it talks about God. They will think, I have achieved everything on my own merit. What is there? Why the credit has to go to God? And they don't even respect the other person. If you respect God, then if you really have love and understanding of God, you will know that God lives in everyone. So everyone is equal in that sense. ऐसे उन द्वेष करने वाले पापचारी और क्रूर कर्मी नराध धर्मों को मैं संसार में बारंबार असुरी योनियों में ही गिराता हूँ, अर्थात शुक्र कुक्र आदि नीच योनियों में ही उत्पन्न करता हूँ. So here Shri Krishna says, those who are envious and create this kind of a sort of wrongdoings in this world, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually create them. Once they die, they are born again and again in the yonis, or in the forms that are extremely lowly and very of that nature that they are showing. So mostly it is like how we live our life, and at the time of death, what are the thought processes we carry, what is the nature we carry, is the body we will be given in our next life, so that we are able to fully exercise that kind of a nature. Suppose if someone has a very a nature where they like to always attack others, always find fault in others, always like to literally rip them apart in terms of through their speech or through their plans, through their thought process, or through their actions. In their next life, they will be born in the form of maybe a wild animal who can exercise that kind of a spirit, that kind of a thought process, that kind of a. So God puts them into those yonis. That's what God is saying. I put them into those yonis where they can actually, based on their nature. इसीलिए हे अर्जुन, वह मूढ़ पुरुष जन्म जन्म में आसुरी योनियों को प्राप्त हुए मेरे को ना प्राप्त होकर उससे भी अति नीच गति को ही प्राप्त होते हैं, अर्थात घोर नरक में पड़े रहते हैं. नाउ suppose if we are given this body of human life, it is such a precious body. Why? Because we have a choice that we want to fall down and go towards that path, or we learn from our scriptures, we learn a better way of life, and we move towards liberation, where we are less attached to these things, we are more understanding of the nature of everything around us, and we live in harmony with nature. We are more forgiving, we are more loving, we try to nurture our divine qualities, the 26 qualities that are defined in the first 3 shlokas. We try to work on them, even if we are not there yet, but we try to nurture those qualities by either taking those actions, or by performing certain duties, or by just sitting and meditating upon them to subtly bring those changes in ourselves. But if we don't do, we are born again and again in those bodies in which we may not even have an opportunity to choose to liberate ourselves. So Shri Krishna says that attaining repeated births among the species of demonic life, hey Arjun, such people can never approach me. They go further and further down. With every life, if this is what they are exercising more and more, they go away and away to the path of more and more lowly thought process, more and more binding thought process, to a more almost a primitive thought process, which is just instant gratification, getting your things done, anger, lust. And gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence, the most petty type of existence. हे अर्जुन, काम क्रोध तथा लोभ, काम क्रोध तथा लोभ, यह 3 प्रकार के नरक के द्वार आत्मा का नाश करने वाले हैं, अर्थात अघोर गति में ले जाने वाले हैं। इससे इन तीनों को त्याग देना चाहिए। In fact, the 21st shloka of Bhagavad Gita is clearly mentioning in the 16th chapter, 21st shloka of Bhagavad Gita, there are 3 doorways to hell. And hell is not a place, please understand, hell is what you live on that moment. If you're living in hell, you don't need to die to go to hell. You're living hell. And after death also, you're in that state. Because again, you'll be born in that body in which you can again and again exercise only that hell. So it's written that सब अनर्थों के मूल और नरक की प्राप्ति में हेतु होने से यहाँ काम, which is lust, क्रोध, which is anger, and लोभ, which is greed. So lust, anger, and greed, काम, क्रोध और लोभ are called 3 doorways to hell. And actually you will see in your life, anytime you're feeling a mental turmoil, it may be, you will if you try to forget about the problem and think about which of these 3 are operating in you now. It has to be either lust, greed, or anger. Either of these 3 is operating when you're feeling any physical as any mental ailment. The moment you try to free yourself from these 3, you will realize that you're free from any physical pain, any mental pain, any psychological turmoil. There are 3 gates leading to hell: lust, anger, and greed, and every sane man should give these up, Shri Krishna says, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. इन तीनों नर्क के द्वारों से मुक्त हुआ, अर्थात काम, क्रोध और लोभ आदि विकारों से छुटा हुआ पुरुष अपने कल्याण का आचरण करता है। इससे वह परम गति को जाता है, अर्थात मेरे को प्राप्त होता है। So Krishna says, the man who has escaped, or a man who can rise above these 3 gates of hell, which are lust, greed, and anger, hey Arjuna, performing acts conducive to self-realization, and thus gradually attains the supreme destination, which is moksha, nirvana, or the feet of God. जो पुरुष शास्त्र की विधि को त्याग कर अपनी इच्छा से बढ़ता है, वह ना तो सिद्धि को प्राप्त होता है, ना परम गति को, तथा ना सुख को ही प्राप्त होता है। Now here, how do we understand how to rise above these 3, lust, greed, and anger? They are so prevalent in us. What is the way? To read our scriptures. If you are a Muslim, read your scriptures. If you are a Sikh, read your scriptures. If you are a Christian, read your scriptures. And if you are a Hindu, I would recommend Bhagavad Gita. Even if you want to read your scriptures and in addition read Bhagavad Gita, it will be highly beneficial to you. You'll be a better Muslim, better Sikh, better Christian, and a better Hindu. Because all our scriptures are leading us towards the correct way of living life. Through these scriptures and understanding, imbibing them and putting into our life as a practice, we are able to transcend upon lust, greed, and anger. Therefore, in the next shloka, Shri Krishna says, he who discards scripture injunctions and acts according to their own whims attain neither perfection nor happiness and never the supreme destination. So if we don't live our life according to our scriptures, that is why there is so much emphasis on going back to dharma first. If we don't live our life according to scriptures, what is going to happen? Forget moksha. We all say, okay, I'm going to die. I don't care what happens to me then. I want to live a good life. I don't want to be bound by the rules and regulations. You don't want to be bound by the rules and regulations. This is your understanding. You're bound more when you don't understand scriptures. You're binding yourself more and more to these problems like illusions, delusional lifestyle, anxieties, depression, greed, lust, anger, and you're living in hell. You're not even living a happy lifestyle. You're not even living a fulfilling lifestyle while you're alive. And of course, after you die, you're carrying all of this pain with you again in the next life to a much lowly life. So, what is the use of this? Therefore, Sri Krishna says they don't live a perfect life nor happiness. So, while living, also, they are not happy, they are not having a perfect life, and of course, they can't attain supreme destination, which is moksha, nirvana, not coming back into this cycle of life and death. Now, if you really look at the four pillars of Hindu Dharma, Sanatan Dharma, I'm not saying Hindu Dharma, are Dharma, Karma, Dharma, Arth, Kam, and Moksha. So the first pillar is Dharma, understanding, reading scriptures, understanding the way of life, fully endowing ourselves with the knowledge, not just with the information, but with knowledge. There is a lot of contemplation. That is why it's not just education, it is more than education. It is fully making yourself capable of living a life. And then comes the second pillar, Artha, which is then using that knowledge, using that understanding of how to properly live a life. You will automatically now know, since I have my knowledge completed, now according to this knowledge, I must also give back to life. So that's when comes the Artha, the earning part. So earning according to the scriptures, earning according to our dharma, earning according to doing nishkam karma. So even when we are earning, we are not under the anxieties, we are not under this greed and lust and all. Why? Because the dharma is in place. We know what is right and what is wrong. We don't even go in the path of what is not meant to be our path. We choose a profession according to our dharma. We do our best according to the right kind of duties that we have. We are sattvic in nature. We help people around. We make money through right means. We give donations with the intention to help people, and we give right kind of donations to the right people. We do not burden ourselves with the fruits of desire. We live life in a happy, prolific way. Then comes the karma. The karma are the desires. The desires that are born out of the knowledge of what is right and wrong are the right desires. Desire to serve, desire to create a family, desire to nourish our family, desire to give right values and teachings to our family, desire to help our society and community through our talents, through our knowledge, through our learnings, through our wealth. And then finally comes the moksha. Living this kind of a fulfilling life automatically leads to moksha. There is nothing special we need to do. So this is what are the four pillars in our Sanatan Dharma. And if we really follow them, we will realize that actually it's such a beautifully laid path for us. But unfortunately, what we do is we emphasize so much on the second pillar, Artha, and then we are deluded by the third pillar, which is the Kama, the lust, the desires, that we forget the Dharma and we never lead ourselves to moksha. Just a sidetrack, coming back to the chapter 16. जो पुरुष शास्त्र की विधि को त्याग कर अपनी इच्छा से बढ़ता है, ना वह सिद्धि को प्राप्त होता है, ना ही परम गति को, ना ही सुख को. So that's what Shri Krishna says. Who discards the spiritual injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness and nor the supreme destination. इससे तेरे लिए इस कर्तव्य और अकर्तव्य की व्यवस्था में शास्त्र ही प्रमाण है. ऐसा जानकर तू शास्त्र विधि से नियत किए हुए कर्म को ही करने के लिए योग्य है. So Shri Krishna says in the last shloka of chapter 16, Shri Krishna says, one should therefore understand that what is duty and what is not duty. What is according to our scriptures our duty and what is not our duty, how to know that? Whenever you are in confusion, go back to your shastras, go back to the scriptures. There is an answer for everything in Bhagavad Gita. If you are confused about, is it the right thing I am doing or is it the wrong thing I am doing? Should I be taking, is this decision according to the according to my dharma or is it decision against my dharma? Please always, the best person is not probably your best friend or your uncle, aunt, or your counselor, or you know, a person that you entrust, or even your spouse, because they all of us are having in some way some illusions in life. We don't know the absolute truth. Where is the absolute truth? The absolute truth is in our own scriptures. So go back to Shastra hi Praman hai. Our Shastras, our scriptures are the right education. They are the right guide to us. So if whenever you are confused, go back to scriptures and take back the nectar of knowledge. Sri Krishna says one should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulation of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. By following our scriptures, by following what is beautifully laid out for us, such an easy way to understand which way to go, which way to think, which way to understand, love, and live life in a most fulfilling, peaceful, harmonious, and thriving way. That is the best way to live, where you are happy, the people around you are happy, and the life that you're creating is very, very nourishing. And what you're taking into your next life is a slightly elevated form of you. So this is how you are elevating yourself towards more and more liberating form, or the more and more divine nature, and not towards the boundings and the heavy energy of the demonic nature, which is very limiting, very constricting, and very full of bondage. With this, the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Dev Asur Sampadi Vibhag Yog, is completed. The next chapter, the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, is absolutely a beautiful chapter, and it is something that I'm really, really looking forward to, because it's about it's Shraddha Traya Vibhag Yog. It's about understanding once again the three modes of nature that operate in us in a much more deeper form. It is also a chapter with only 28 shlokas. It's a short one, just like this one. So I hope you'll be equally eager and excited to come back for the next video, which is the chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita. Until then, take care of yourself, and let's end this chapter with these two powerful Maha Mantras. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.